My name is Ty Dinnan. I lived in Charlotte for all but 7 years of my life, and I've attended every town meeting day held while living here, including many years at my mom's feet, busy with tic-tac-toe and Mad Libs. Today, I'm welcoming you to Candidates Night as the president of the Charlotte Grange. The Grange is a beautiful historic building and community gathering place in Baptist Corners in East Charlotte. The Charlotte Grange is also a community organization whose work is to honor our agricultural roots and help build a resilient future for all. We run programs and events including Candidates Night, seasonal clothing drives, Words for Thirds, the Farm Map, and Grange on the Green music concerts. We're gearing up for another exciting programming season, and we have a lot of fun volunteer opportunities coming up. Membership is open to all residents aged 14 years or older, and I encourage you to visit charlottegrange.org to learn more. As you see, I have no babysitter. Sally Wadhams is our vice president at the Grange, and she'll be here in case I need to step away. Apologies if I need to slip away before the end of the program to start our bedtime routine. I am very happy to introduce our moderator, Jonathan Silverman. Jonathan is the chair of the Charlotte Library Board of Trustees and taught at St. Michael's College for 25 years. He has lived in Charlotte for 32 years. Thank you, Jonathan, for moderating our discussion tonight.
Thank you, Ty. I have to say that I really enjoyed the silence that we all had before we sort of embark on our lively conversation. So welcome. I'm really happy to be with you tonight to moderate what I hope to be a fruitful conversation with the candidates for the town positions. I remind us that the intent is to create a civil and respectful forum so that each of us can then go back and make informed decisions with our votes. So the format is as follows. Each candidate will have approximately 3 minutes to respond to a question. There'll be some questions that will be addressed specifically to the select board candidates, and most specifically to the ones that are contested the 2-year position. There may be a specific question for the candidate, the write-in candidate for the school board. These questions have been submitted by members of our Charlotte community. And if there is time at the end, we'll take questions from those attending. And I suppose you can either let us know through the chat box or by raising your hand. We will end the session with 1 minute closing statements. So thank you all for being here, and let's get started. So I'm going to ask each of the candidates to share just a brief picture of themselves, who they are, and why they're interested in running for the position that they're running for. And we haven't really figured out an order. So I think I'm going to do it by what I see on my Hollywood squares, and we'll start with Patrice.
Jonathan, thank you. Ty, thank you for organizing this. Thank you to the library for also hosting it. Gosh, I haven't run for public office for a number of years. I think the last time we had a significant snowstorm that changed town meeting. So my candidacy and my start of the select school board actually started a month later. So I've lived in Charlotte for 37 years. This is where, when I moved to Vermont, my husband and I decided to settle down, raise our children. For the past 37 years, I've cared deeply about Charlotte, making it a better place, where voices of residents are heard, decisions that impact our town are transparent. I firmly believe that my approach to decision-making, my ability to listen, my track record, my ability to listen, learn, and lead, as well as my attention to detail and fiscal discipline is needed at this time when there are changing community needs and additional demands on our local government. It's not without my noticing. We ask a lot of our volunteer elected officials, and being prepared is paramount to providing good governance. I hope that individuals that know me from my work in various other disciplines in town, both volunteer and paid, will support me. And I look forward to listening to you and being your voice on the select board.
Thank you, Patrice. Then we'll turn to Kelly.
How about now? Hi, my name is Kelly Devine. I live on Spear Street, about a couple miles south of the Spear Corner store. I've lived in Charlotte for 17 years, raised both of my children in Charlotte, who went through Charlotte and CDU schools. Love the town a lot. It's a great place to live. I moved to Charlotte in 2006 with the idea of creating a cooperative community, which I did do. It's a co-housing community on Greenbush Road. It was an innovative.
No, but she moved.
Excuse me, can anybody who's not speaking, in this case, we should only hear Kelly. Can you please mute yourself? Because it is distracting for the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I moved here to create this co-housing community, which was unique at its time. It's the location of some of the few, if not only, connected adjoined townhomes in the town. And what we did was we bought 126 acres of land, and using both standard zoning as well as putting into affordable units, we conserved 116 acres of land and put 26 houses on about 11 acres. That project still exists today. I lived there for 6 years. I don't live there anymore. But it was a unique experiment for me, and a unique learning experience, because I was the president of the organization when it started, and we were all a group of volunteers. So I got to learn a lot about town government very quickly, and it was quite an education. Since that time, I've been raising my children. Most of my municipal experience has been in Burlington, because I'm the president of the Burlington Business Association. I work extensively in housing policy, fiscal policy, and tax policy in Burlington. I've worked with city departments on major reforms, including a major reform to the city's parking department in 2015. After my kids were grown, or mostly grown, I decided I wanted to take some of that community experience and that municipal experience and put it to use in Charlotte. I joined the Planning Commission in 2020 because, one of my passions really for Vermont is figuring out ways, as I did with the co-housing, to balance the needs to conserve and open space and preserve our rural nature while also addressing our housing crisis. So I've been on the Planning Commission. I was elected vice chair last year. My term runs through 2024. That's been a great learning experience, including serving during the transition from Planning Commission / Development Review to 2 separate entities, which I think has been a really great thing for the town. I decided to run this year because the town is going through some major transitions, and I think my experience and background can be very helpful. I've worked with very large budgets and a lot of municipal budgets. I know about municipal laws and state laws regarding municipal government. And so I was excited to do that, because we have not only the plan to integrate the Charlotte Volunteer Fire and Rescue into the town budget, but also to see the transition away by our longtime town administrator, Dean Block. So there were those 2 big challenges which motivated me to run. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Louis, let's stay with the select board team.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. And thanks everyone for coming, and thanks so much, Ty and the Grange, for arranging this. I am running uncontested, but I still certainly hope folks are going to vote for me. My name is Louis Mudge. I am relatively new to Charlotte. We moved here. I'm from Orange County, Vermont, a little town called Vershire, with about 700 people. My dad was from Thetford. And I moved here in 2000, and we bought in 2016. We moved here in 2017. So I'm still a relatively newcomer, despite the fact that I've already been on the select board for 2 years. My wife and I moved here from Kenya in East Africa, and we knew this was the town we wanted to move to. We love this town so much. We love the school systems. We love everything about Charlotte. We love the proximity to Burlington. We love raising our kids here. I am someone who likes to be in the mix. I like to try to help make decisions. I love democracy. I'll talk about my job in a second. And so I knew relatively soon that I wanted to try to be a part of our town's decision-making process. For my 9-to-5 job, I work for a group called Human Rights Watch. I help to manage teams across Central Africa, and we investigate war crimes in countries like Chad, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, and the Central African Republic. But notwithstanding the fact that I travel a lot, I've only missed a handful of meetings in my 2 years on the select board. I have missed 2 meetings I had to do from Africa. I missed one I had to do remotely as well because I had COVID. And I only missed 3 meetings, 2 of them because I was on holiday with my family up in Canada. So I feel like I have a very good track record in my attendance on the select board meetings because I genuinely do, as long and as seemingly tedious as these meetings can be, I genuinely do love it. And I love staying to the end, and I love being a part of the process. I'm running for a 3-year seat because I still feel like I'm learning a ton. 2 years has flown by, and I really don't want to present myself as a know-it-all. I'm here to learn from Patrice and Kelly tonight as well. I absolutely still consider myself a novice in this role, but I'm beginning to understand at least what I don't know. And I think that's a helpful first start. So I really do think that I'm going to continue to add value to the select board if I'm elected to a 3-year seat. I really hope to get your vote to try to continue to move our town in what I think is a really good direction. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, Louis, and thanks for all the work you do for human justice. I think, you know, having come to the select board meetings a couple of times, when you're not there, if you could leave your welly boots in your place, that would be great.
That's Orange County. That's Orange County right there.
Megan, we'll turn it over to you now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Sickett, and I am a very new and recent addition to this race for the school board. I saw in the CCS newsletter that no one was running, and I decided that it's just a really important position that we need good candidates for, and realized maybe I should be the one running. I've lived with my family in Charlotte for 5 years, moved here in 2018. I have 2 kids at CCS, one in 5th grade and one in 8th grade. And my 8th grader will be going to CVU next year. I love the school. I love the educators and the staff, and really just want to serve on the school board to make sure everybody, the families, educators, and staff continue to have a positive public school experience. In my day job, I am an attorney in the Office of General Counsel at UVM. I have worked in a firm as outside counsel to higher education institutions for like 15 years before that. And then I've been at UVM for 5 years. And so I know education law. I'm a labor and employment attorney, so I know collective bargaining agreements and employment laws and policies. And I think I can be helpful to the school board with that legal experience. And those are really the reasons why I'm looking to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you for rising up to serve when you feel like there's a need. We really appreciate it. And finally, Lindsay, please share.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me all right? All right. I'm Lindsay Smith. I've lived in Charlotte for 10 years. I live on Greenbush Road with my husband and my 2 kids. My daughters are in 1st and 3rd grades at Charlotte Central. I'm running for the Board of Trustees at the library. I love the library. I take advantage of many of the library's numerous resources, from the kids and adults collections to the kids after school programs to the evening knitting program and also the co-working space. I'm excited to run for the Board of Trustees. The library is an important part of our community, and I love our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Okay, so I'm going to ask some questions and feel free to respond. You can either put up your hand and then I'll just call on you just to make it a little bit easier. So we'll start with this question. What are your thoughts about in-person town meeting in the future? And with this response, include any thoughts about a hybrid system with discussion on budget and approval of amendments followed by Australian vote. So we've kind of changed over the years and just wondering what people's perspective on our town meeting. Okay, Kelly, you're up.
The town that I grew up in Massachusetts still has in-person town meetings. So it's something that I've grown up with and I think is, as a New Englander, is very closely tied to our New England roots. I think the challenge that we've been having is participation level. Town meeting is most fun and most valuable when you get a lot of folks to participate. So we need to together figure out how to balance those two things. Certainly when we're passing a town budget like the one that's proposed this year, and we know if we follow some of the commentary that's been locally in Front Porch Forum and talk around the coffee table, that citizens are concerned about that budget. I know I in the past have been concerned with some of the school budgets that have been put forward. And so, I think we need to balance participation with this really important democratic institution that's very unique to New England, which is town meeting. So I would be looking for ways to try to solve that. Some other towns have moved to Saturday, for example. The town I'm from does it in the evening. And I can tell you that my parents always went to town meeting. When I was in high school, I was a cub reporter for the local radio station and covered town meeting. So it's something that's really important to me. But I think that we have to be realistic about the fact that maybe the current model, which has been having it on a Tuesday, is not probably getting the level of participation that we want. So I would be supportive of exploring a hybrid model. I would be supportive of exploring different days and times to increase participation. I would want to hear more from citizens, a larger group of citizens, about what they really want and if they're willing to participate. But I do think that we have to work really hard to find a model that preserves that part of who we are as Charlotters. We like to be together, I think, and we like to find ways to work on issues together. And I think the more we are together, the less maybe contentious some debates would be. So I think we got to work to try to figure that out. And I would do that if elected to the select board.
Thank you, Kelly. Anyone else would like to respond to that question? Patrice.
Sure, thank you, Jonathan. So some of you weren't living in town when this occurred, but as an individual who has attended town meeting faithfully since my children were born, I was unable to do that before and witnessed firsthand the dwindling number of participants who were unable to attend. Some who were able to attend, I witnessed them having to leave prior to a vote on important articles, and compared that to the number of people that I witnessed walking through to vote on Australian ballot items for elected officials and the school budget. I also became increasingly aware of the inability for some people to actually attend for a variety of reasons. So I was actually a member of the Town Meeting Solutions Committee. It was an interesting group. We came from all different viewpoints. We believed in the traditional town meeting format. Although it's a valued tradition, which I value, it does not provide equitable opportunity for all voters to participate in their right to vote. Town meeting does preserve a form of government in which every citizen present participates in deciding and voting on the town's policy that determines our taxes. But again, it doesn't provide equitable opportunity. Voting on the town budget via floor vote on town meeting limits the number of town residents who are able to participate. So our goal on the Town Meeting Solutions Committee was to increase the interest and participation in town voting on town matters, specifically budgets, which impact all of us and what we pay in taxes. So the hybrid model was developed. It was adopted through a town charter. It was granted through the Vermont legislature, and the charter actually sunset after 3 years. Some people viewed it as an experiment. And then COVID hit. And one of the benefits of COVID is that it has provided all registered taxpayers an opportunity to vote on the budget. Although the debate and adjustments to proposed budgets took a backseat, all registered voters were sent a ballot in the mail. So if elected, what I would advocate for is a solution that works for as many citizens as possible. And that is a conversation that is going to involve all stakeholders. It needs to include the select board. It needs to include our legislative representatives. It needs to include taxpayers. So that's my view on town meeting.
Thanks, Patrice. Louis.
Thanks, Jonathan. I mean, this was a tough decision that we had to make this year, once again. And there was some folks stood up and were very, very adamant for a return to a full town meeting. And I was one of the 3 votes to continue with the Australian ballot this year. I stand by that vote. We had a plan. We listened to a lot of people and we stuck with it. It's not a perfect solution, but I think this year it was the best solution. With regards to next year, I really think both Patrice and Kelly have on the right track. We need to look towards the blunt numbers, which is we're getting such an overwhelming percentage of people who do vote when it is a ballot box vote. Versus town meeting day. The town meeting day before COVID, I was there. I had to leave early. Because I have 3 small kids and I had to get back home because my wife had to do a call or something like that. And it was just one of those things. And so for working families, we need to understand that town meeting day is not a solution. We did seek to try to put town meeting day on a weekend this year when we were going to move forward with it. That is a part of a solution, but it fell on the Saturday after school vacation. I got a lot of CCS families calling me up and saying that doesn't help us at all. We got to go see our grandparents in place X. So, I am more than willing, starting next year to begin a hybrid model process. But the fact is that I've heard overwhelmingly from people that a ballot box vote does enable them to participate in ways that they couldn't before. So I'll be looking to seek a hybrid model, but not to lose that component.
Thanks, Louis. And thanks for sharing a little bit about this year's process. Megan and Lindsay, you don't have to respond to questions, but you're most welcome to if you'd like to. So do you have, I'm assuming that we're going to pass on this one. Okay. So I'm going to make this one a little bit more broad. And there's obviously been conversations about the lack of affordable housing in Charlotte. And I'm wondering, with the candidates, what your perspective is on perhaps addressing this lack of affordable housing in Charlotte. Anyone want to take this one on?
I'm going to let Kelly and Patrice speak first. I'm uncontested, barring a write-in candidate.
I can't go first every time. So Patrice.
I was just looking for my unmute button, sorry. Now, Louis, we'd value you to go first. Even though you're uncontested.
I'm happy to, but you're next. If you want me to, I can, but you're next.
No, that's fine. I'll go and then we'll give Kelly a break and you can follow.
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, I think there's probably agreement across the board that Charlotte has a lack of affordable houses. And one thing that I see in conjunction with affordability is what I term a retention issue. So people's ability to stay in town when it comes to housing. It's no surprise that Charlotte has an aging population, and we need to provide opportunities for our seniors as well to age in place, either by downsizing in accessory dwellings or senior housing, thus allowing multi-generations to remain part of the community. Anyone that has gone through the planning process and the development review understands and experiences how new projects, how difficult it can be and how slow, costly, and unpredictable that process can be. The Planning Commission develops land regulations, the Development Review Board approves projects guided by the land regulations, and the Select Board has oversight. In my opinion, projects need to be promptly approved that meet zoning laws, and the select board needs to ensure that those resources are in place and available to allow that to happen. We, as a community, are fortunate to already have identified village centers, which are most likely the location for affordable and senior housing. However, we do face a lack of affordable infrastructure and accessibility to transportation, food, and healthcare. I think Charlotte needs to have an ongoing commitment to actively pursue grant opportunities that will allow us to further those endeavors, and strategies should be developed through the update of the town plan, which is on track, that I hope will lead to more affordability in town.
Thank you, Patrice. Who do we decide is going next, Kelly or Lewis? Kelly's going
ahead,
next.
So I do agree with a lot of what Patrice said. You should put a fine point on some of the issues that I think are challenging us. You know, having worked on housing policy for the last 15 years, you know, I have to say that affordable housing is much more than a Charlotte problem. It certainly is a Chittenden County problem and beyond. One thing that I always find interesting when I discuss this with folks is, what do we mean by affordable? You know, and if we're in Charlotte terms, what does that really mean? You know, we have this 5-acre zoning. So Patrice mentioned, well, projects that are approved should move forward, and of course they should. And but that's a 5-acre plot of land. And if any of us have looked at the real estate listings of late, even just the land itself would put that house out of the range of affordable for what we use as the median income of Chittenden County. So there's two kinds of affordable housing. There's affordable housing that is pegged to the median income, which means working families. You know, a lot of times people refer to librarians, school teachers, police officers can afford that home. That's affordable housing pegged to the mean. Then in Burlington, typically, but in other towns too, we have low income subsidized housing, which is housing that is subsidized by the federal government for people that truly are low income. I think we're talking about trying to hit that median income. I find it interesting because the project that I developed in Charlotte, the co-housing project, had fairly small houses that were highly energy efficient. The idea was it was supposed to be a place to raise families. Much to my surprise, I saw recently that a home in there with, you know, shared land, but virtually no yard, sold for over $550,000. So we definitely have a problem in town. It seems at the point we're at right now, with the cost of building in Vermont, with the time it takes to build, with how easy it is for people to appeal projects or threaten to appeal projects, that the only way I think we're going to be able to build housing that is viable for working families is with some kind of subsidy. There are activities and proposed legislation at the State House in Montpelier that I think is really promising for towns. And it's something that we certainly could look at. Unfortunately, Charlotte is not going to be able to move forward on that until, as Patrice mentioned, we really get a handle on infrastructure. We have people that come to the Planning Commission that have concerns about their water access. We have projects that, you know, have to find septic. And so as long as those limiting factors are there, we have a challenge. In the Planning Commission, we proposed a change to allow an ADU up to 1,500 square feet, with the goal being that an established family could either age in place at their existing home or move into a smaller unit and maybe have their children take over the family home. Sounds like a great idea. The reality is that we know that the septic and water are going to be the limiting factors on every single one of those projects. So we have some work to do as a town if we really believe that we want to be able to provide housing for what I call the missing middle, not the people that are low income subsidized. And we have our conservation fund and we have our housing fund, and we've had some projects by Habitat for Humanity and all those that have been great for folks in that category. We have plenty of homes in Charlotte for people that are in the upper end of the income category or even quite wealthy. So if we really want to do this, I think we have to decide as a town if we're going to focus on hitting that middle. And if we are, we certainly have to figure out a way to move away from a 5-acre zoning allowance. And we have to look in areas of the town like our village districts where there is a possibility of having some shared septic and water systems so that infrastructure would exist to allow those houses even to be developed. I am supportive of looking at the village districts. We have an update to our town plan coming up. There's been some resistance in town, people that, want it, but not right where they live. So I think we've got to get our town in a dialogue about this. I think this is what the Community Heart and Soul Project may be trying to get at. But, we have a growing trend in this country where lots of people want housing. They just don't want this project, or they don't want it right here. So we really have to build that shared consensus as well, because this is not a light lift.
Thanks, Kelly. Anyone else want to? Yeah, Louis.
Yeah, I mean, when you drive in from Shelburne and you're driving down Route 7 and you enter Charlotte and you see those big open spaces and, you realize that this is a special town. We need to protect that. I think the way to do it is to try to, as both candidates, Patrice and Kelly, were talking about density in the villages. The Heart and Soul Project did highlight two things that people thought that we needed, which was A, protect our open spaces, and B, seek some more density in the second Heart and Soul meeting and allow for some more affordable housing. So, I think we know the roadmap. I think, having the sort of benefit of being a part of the process for 2 years and also being an uncontested race, I can be a bit more honest. Water and septic, I made the motion for a Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission grant that we were awarded to enable us to know what we need if we do want to go down this route, because I think we do need to do it. Yes, we have a reputation of being Charlotte. We're deliberative. We are a deliberative town because we care very much about these decisions. And I don't think that's a bad thing as such. I also, to Kelly's point, I also voted for the LURs that approved the 1,500 square foot ADU extension. So, there are these small steps we're taking. We have secured this grant on knowing where we want to go. But we also have to be really realistic. Water and septic, if we want to put it into the villages, is going to be incredibly expensive. We are looking at a backlash, completely legitimate. I am not trying to delegitimize it, but a backlash on our town budget, which is only 12% of our property tax liability, which was substantial. The pushback we got on it, which I encourage and I want people to reach out to their select board members and tell us when it's too much. And we scaled that budget back. But that budget's not going anywhere. Most of that budget was from salary increases. So it's not like we're going to go back to zero next year. We're at that level. And so I do want to be cognizant of the fact that this is a very expensive lift down the line, and we need to have our eyes wide open. There was a great DRB meeting last night that I'm not on the DRB, so I can speak about the meeting. I was just listening in, and there are some interesting things happening in East Charlotte. I think it's exciting stuff. So I do think that there is some potential to get some, especially senior housing in this town. I think that would really represent the values that we have. But I do want to, I guess, let everyone on the call know that 2 years ago, I was like, yeah, let's just get septic and water and sort of build up the villages. We're talking millions of dollars that right now I'm not seeing anyone stepping forward. We used up our ARPA money on the town garage. So we have to be very, very cognizant of the fact that this is a long-term project. And we need to be deliberative, have our eyes wide open on it. Thank you, Jonathan. I think you just muted yourself, Jonathan.
Thank you. I did. Thank you, Louis. It's encouraging that we're turning ideas into practice. I mean, it's something that's been an ongoing conversation in Charlotte, but it seems like there's more momentum. Let's turn our attention to our school, just to bring everyone back in. Since people have children at CCS and CVU, or have had children in there, or members of the community and support it. So here's a question that anybody can respond to. There's been much national and local attention, discussion, objectives, support for history inclusive of Black and Indigenous experiences. So what are anyone's views regarding inclusivity as part of the curriculum in our schools. I'm gonna ask Megan to start us off.
Thanks, Jonathan. So I am definitely not a curriculum expert, and I would look to our educators if I was on the school board to help inform what is best for our children. But as a parent, I'll say that I think it's essential. I think it's important, and it's happening because my kids come home and teach me every day what they're learning. My 5th grader is learning about Black History Month. He's telling me about Frederick Douglass, about a project he has in class. I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful, and it's unfortunate that that topic has become controversial. It really shouldn't be, but hopefully it's not in our community. But yes, I support that type of education in our classes.
Thank you, Megan. Lewis, yeah.
I'll take a stab at it. I consider myself to be a moderate Democrat. I am not woke. I just want to sort of get that out there. And I think a lot of Democrats need to scale down Mount Progressive. But this is ridiculous. We should be teaching the civil rights movement. We should be teaching the bad things that this country has done, along with all the great things we've done. I have the benefit of having spent a significant part of my life outside this country. I raised my children in a very, very different economic situation. They were born in Kenya, where people are either very rich or very poor. They have their eyes wide open. Kids know what's going on, and they know that there's some inequalities in this country, and we shouldn't be afraid. We should teach it. It shouldn't be conflated with, critical race theory and all these terms that scare us. We should absolutely allow teachers to move forward and teach our children to be good, responsible citizens. And we should encourage them to challenge the status quo. That's what education's all about.
Thank you for that, Lewis. Anyone else want to share her thoughts? I'll just say that it's such a challenge to teach and experience otherness. And it's something that in Charlotte, we really need to consider. Probably everyone needs to consider that. Okay, let's see where we're going to go from here. Okay, how about thoughts about any town ordinances, tax policies, or regulations that would promote reduction in carbon emissions from homes and vehicles?
Did Patrice and Kelly want me to go first because it's the select board sort of thing? I mean, I want to keep it fair, but I also, I'll be brief. Solarize Charlotte, our energy committee is doing great work. For some reason, there sometimes seems to be a particular amount of vitriol against our energy committee. I'm the liaison on the select board to them. I think they're doing fantastic work. They work their butts off, and I hope to be the liaison to continue with them if I'm reelected. Solarize Charlotte is an exciting project. It's going to be a means by which Charlotters can move on to solar. And my wife and I are going to take advantage of it. We're hoping to switch over to solar this spring. This is a lot of questions are going to be answered. And if we can get a core number of Charlotters in on it, we can get a reduction on our installs. So that's fantastic. Good old Jim Faulkner. I'm not sure if he's on the call, but he has really come around to making the new town garage carbon neutral. He loves the term carbon neutral, and he's really come around to that. So, look, I think it's going to be a lot of little things, I mean, we're a car economy. We're a car town. We're not going to, even if we did get a bus stop here, most of us are going to be driving, and most families are going to need 2 vehicles. We got to be realistic about that. I don't think most people can go out and buy EVs. But the little things that we can do, especially with taking what our energy committee is offering us, and moving forward on that. If anyone is interested in moving into solar, now's the time. There's federal subsidies, there's real money that can kick in and that can help you reduce your rates, and you can get off of your oil furnace, which I think is a good thing for everyone. So that's my pitch for the energy committee, and to give them some support.
I'll say that's true for cars as well, the incentive. Patrice.
Sure, I'll go next. And we'll go clockwise, and then Kelly, you're it. So similar to what Louis just said, I think we're extremely fortunate in this town to have a town plan. It's a framework that was adopted by the voters in 2019, and it serves as a good guiding document for us. I, like Louis, agree that the members of our Energy Committee and our Planning Commission play a significant role in us attaining goals that have been outlined in the town plan. As a select board member, if I were elected, I would lean heavily on the wealth of knowledge of the people on those committees. We do. It's no surprise as a rural community that we have hurdles and barriers to getting there. You know, how we overcome the lack of access to public transportation. How do we make it easier to live without cars? Even within our village centers, we lack adequate parking and a safe way to navigate on foot. There is a good conversation that needs to be had. I'm glad to see, I was actually on the last select board meeting when the Energy Committee actually asked for support to hire that consultant for Solarize Vermont. And I think that's an important step forward.
Thanks, Patrice. Kelly, you're it.
I actually worked in energy conservation and the electric utility for 15 years, so I'm very familiar with this topic, and we do a lot of that stuff in Burlington. Give me a call about the solar thing. I've been wanting to do it. If it's open to East Charlotte or I think, you know, the co-housing community that I ran and built, every single one of those houses was energy 5-star or greater. Now, one of my biggest challenges as a Vermonter is living in houses that aren't energy efficient. One of the biggest challenges that we have, especially here in Burlington, and I think somewhat in Charlotte too, are houses that aren't just heating their house, but they're heating a perimeter around the outside. So the house that I live in now was built in 2006 and is energy 5-star rated. That's an important thing to me. And when I bought it, I added more energy efficiency measures in there. I have an 18-year-old son who's a student at UVM, and I hear about our climate constantly. We've watched what's happened to our ski industry. We've watched what's happening on the West Coast with these fires. And I think we all know that we have to do our part. One of the things I think when we talk about density and we talk about housing, you know, some people say to me, you know, Charlotte can build more big houses on 5-acre lots. It certainly can. That's our zoning. That type of policy also has an energy impact. And I think that's important to note, that all of the policies that we have in town, including the land use policies, have an impact on our future ability to reduce our impact on our environment. And let's face it, I don't think you can be a Charlotter and not be absolutely in love with this landscape. It has got to be one of the most beautiful towns in the state. We've got a lake to protect. I work a lot on lake health. We've got a real you know, situation there that, you know, really is outside of Charlotte, but important. We've got these beautiful mountains to both sides of us. We have all kinds of places to hike and walk and take our children and go with our dogs. The co-housing community, one of the first things we did was allow access to the town trail, and that's why you can go from Greenbush to underneath Route 7 now. I negotiated the deal with the state to allow the tunnel underneath 7 to connect to our co-housing property. So I get this stuff. I think that Louis is right in some way that it's small measure. I think it's very much a shared belief in this town that we have to do what we can. I think solar is great. I'll just close by saying I'm a big believer in incentive rather than punishment. So I would be looking for ways to leverage the incentives that are coming through the state, as well as you know, some of these other sort of homespun initiatives, if you will, as a way to engage people and move that forward. You know, let's face it, one of the things as Vermonters too is we're fairly independent. That may be part of the reason we're here. So let's find a way to make this feel welcoming and accessible to more people. And if you do, more people will do it. And one of the ways to do that is, as Louis mentioned, is find ways for people to work cooperatively, because that does reduce the cost.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm going to ask this one last question before closing statements, although I haven't seen any of our participants, if they have any questions, we certainly are willing to take them. So here's this question. What are your thoughts about converting the volunteer fire department into a town department where there'd be more transparency and control of the budget? So any thoughts about our ideas to lower control the budget from our volunteer fire department?
I'm happy to go first on that. I've worked extensively on municipal budgets in Burlington, worked with department heads on budget revamps. I've worked on tax policy. None of this stuff is ever all that simple. I think it's also important to note that the fire and rescue budget, the cost for that is like 22% of our budget for this year. I think the first thing that we have to do as Charlotters is decide if we value that service enough to be willing to spend that portion of our tax payment, our municipal tax payment on it. Because let's remember, most of our tax payment goes to the schools. That being said, the initiative to bring the fire and rescue into the town is a complex one. And if you look at their budget and you look at our town budget, what's the number one thing that's costing us the most money right now? It's human beings. And human beings not only need to make a decent salary, but there's benefits that go with them and other incentives you have to provide people. This Burlington faces the same problem. It's, how many people do you need to run the service sufficiently to be able to make it viable? So that would be probably the number one thing that I would begin to look at is, if you bring those people into the town of Charlotte and under the municipal government, what does that do to our organization? Is there a chance that those folks would unionize? Are we getting a better service than we would otherwise? That being said, I do think that there is legitimate concern for the town spending this much money on an entity that is actually, and rightly so, completely separate to the town, so it doesn't necessarily have a fiscal responsibility to open its books. I think that with this being on the table, it's really an opportunity for us to, one, understand what we value and decide if we want to put our money behind what we value. Two, look at regional options as a potential solution. And number three, really have a discussion about what is the most fiscally responsible choice for the town, while at the same time preserving the service that people want. There certainly is a very significant value add service of having this entity right in our town, but that's not inexpensive. As Lewis said, when he was referring to infrastructure, this service is somewhat a form of the basic services that a town may or may not provide. Plenty of Vermont towns don't have this level of service. So we have to really decide together if that's what we want, because, if this thing costs right now, I think it's in the budget for over $900,000, perhaps it costs that, perhaps it costs 700, perhaps it costs 1.2 million. We know it doesn't cost $200,000. That we know for sure. So we have to decide together if that's something that we want to continue to support going forward. And then if we do, we have to figure out the most efficient way to do it. It may or may not be with government control, because there's a lot of unintended consequences there that I would want the select board to look at closely. It's going to have to be really closely examined, and that examination is going to have to be highly transparent for our citizens so that we can move forward in a way that makes sense.
Thanks, Kelly. Patrice, I'm sure you would like to offer an opinion.
This is my world. This is where I've been spending the last 10 years of my life. For those of you that don't know, I started at Charlotte Fire and Rescue as a consultant in response to a 5-year forensic audit based upon those same type of conversations that we're having today about the costs and where does the money go. Kelly hit the nail right on the head that, we are a very heavily laden, all of our expenses, or the majority of them, close to 80%, are human capital related. That means wages, taxes, required insurances like workers' compensation. So there's not a lot of discretionary spending when it comes to that. It's my opinion that this is less of a control issue, and it's more of a sustainability issue in a world of declining volunteerism. During last year's budget development cycle, Fritz Tagatz, who was then the board president, informed the select board of such. In an open letter to the community this past summer, the CVFRS board reiterated that the increasing challenges of maintaining a volunteer-run organization means that some form of organizational evolution is likely to be the best strategy going forward. We stated then that we believe that this is a decision that is not to be taken lightly to sustain the high quality of services that are currently in place that this town has continued to value by supporting the budget. And such a change such as this required substantial research, planning, and most importantly, a thorough town discussion to be certain that all parties understand the difficulties of maintaining a fire and rescue service. The potential for increased costs exists and the risk of interrupting service. Absent of a feasibility study, which speaks to what services at what costs, there are no assurances that the transition to a municipal department is going to lead to a reduction in costs. There are several differences between the wage benefits and holidays provided by the two entities. And by that, I mean what is currently offered by the private nonprofit that we know is CVFRS and the town of Charlotte. These have already been identified through the transition process, and the consultant that the town has hired has been working with us to review documents and try to mesh those together. As far as concrete ideas for reducing or controlling costs, when the transition occurs, there are going to be provisions that will be advantageous to the town under FLSA, which are not available to a private nonprofit such as CVFRS. I think there's still a lot of open dialogue that needs to occur at select board meetings to discuss the cost benefits of reductions or potential reductions based on policies and data. I have spoken time and again every year when we present our budget, when we defend our budget, and before the end of the budget cycle about what the drivers are in the CVFRS budget and how many staff it actually takes to provide the services. Got to remember, there's been a direct change over the past decade of what an ambulance service is. It's no longer a ride to the hospital. This is pre-hospital care. So I think there's conversation that needs to happen. There is still a target. I believe, Louis, you can confirm this, that we're still targeting July 1st as a transition date. And we're working collaboratively with the town to make sure that's seamless to the community. And what does seamless mean? That means that when somebody picks up the phone and dials 911, that the fire trucks still arrive and that the ambulances are staffed 24/7, 365 with licensed personnel that can literally save your life.
Thanks, Patrice. Anyone else?
Jonathan, the line's breaking up. I can't hear you anymore. I think I'm gonna have to, joking.
Call 911.
Yeah, exactly right. Look, I think both Patrice and Kelly have really illustrated the challenge ahead. I am learning a lot in this process. And what I can say is that when I speak to Charlotters, especially folks from our senior citizens community, they want the level of service that we have. And that comes at a significant cost. We have a very, very good service. I don't see us going to a regional service anytime soon, as long as the majority of Charlotters who we're speaking to want there to be the service that we have. This is going to come at a significant cost. I cannot say hand on heart that this move that we're aiming to do is going to lead to cost reduction. I cannot say that. There is hope maybe that we'll have some of these benefits that Patrice was alluding to with the municipal service. But I also have to tell you, I'm very, this budgeting process this year was very illustrative to me. and how serious people are taking that 12%. I'm worried about next year. We kicked a lot of cans down the road this year. Roofs in town infrastructure, forget about CVFRS, other issues that we just kicked the can down the road on. These things are going to come back to us. We asked CVFRS, we asked Patrice and John Snow to hold off on some expenses, and they did so, knowing that the challenges that we are under this year with quite a significant increase. That doesn't mean those costs aren't coming. So I think we have 51 people on this call. I would love it if we could get these people participating in the conversations as we move forward on this merger, because we need to be really frank with the townspeople. This might not lead to a reduction in cost. It might lead, and I know this is a heavy bill. People always say to me, we're paying too much for CVFRS. And then the second thing they say is, don't change the service. We don't want that to change. These things come at a real cost. I'm learning the hard way, kind of being in the thick of it. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for the work these folks are doing. Declining volunteerism is an issue. All I can say is that if folks are worried about that tax increase, they really need to start paying attention. And we're picking this up like now, like once the election's over, we're picking this right back up on our town meeting agendas. So please come and participate and let your feelings be known.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Louis. So because we have only one contested part of our election here, I asked the candidates for the 2-year select board position to see if they would ask each other a question. And I'm hoping that they'd be willing to do that. So they have that in advance. Patrice, Kelly, are you okay with asking each other a question?
That's fine.
Okay, Kelly, why don't you start then?
Oh, I have to start.
Yeah, I went first last time, Kelly, so it's your turn.
Patrice, if you were elected to select board and were working with among the select board members on trying to figure out the fire and rescue budget, and you were asked by the people of the town to cut 10%, could you tell us how you might figure out a way to do that?
Well, much like when the select board develops their budget, it's a collaborative effort at CVFRS. There are certainly line items that I would look to and have discussion with the chief about, is it possible to make a modification here? Could we do this? Are there smarter and better ways that we can provide the services that we're providing? Obviously, we can't, there are a number of uncontrollables in the CVFRS budget. Fuel costs, not only to heat the building, which is occupied 24/7, 365 by 2 individuals that sleep there. We have fueling costs. It's okay to have the apparatus sitting in the apparatus bay, but if they're not full of diesel fuel to actually respond to those emergencies, and insurances. As I mentioned before, there's not a lot of discretionary spending. So areas that may suffer if you were to make that type of decrease. And I'm saying this with removing any adjustments to current wages. I think once we convert to a municipal department, the average per diem rate and the average full-time rate is going to be apparent when you go to put that on the matrix that the town has established, that no one's getting rich working at CVFRS. But where I would look is probably, training. But you don't want to minimize training when, people's licensure and other people's lives are reliant upon that happening. I think every budget that's developed anywhere can always find 5-10% somewhere. And the town budget is no different. I mean, I think I'll go back to one of the things I used to always tell my kids when they were growing up. There are wants and there are needs. And you have to be able to substantiate why something is a need and why it's required. We rely very heavily on a lot of institutional platforms. We have national reporting requirements. We have state reporting requirements. Those expenses don't go away. There are some things in our budget that have a direct relationship to the patient billing revenue. One of them is that because it's more cost effective, we pay an outside vendor who specializes in patient billing services. They know all the insurance ins and outs. And as a result, if you look at our last few years of patient billing revenue, it has continued to increase. He also makes recommendations on when we should increase our rates for billable revenues. The other thing that's a non-controllable is action that was taken in Montpelier. There's a 3.3% tax that CBFRS pays to Montpelier. Again, uncontrollables.
Thank you, Patrice.
Kelly, did that answer your question?
Yeah, sure.
I sort of went off on a little bit of a tangent because I know that budget so well that there would be challenges in cutting 10%, but there's always opportunities when you delve deeper.
Patrice, do you have a question for Kelly?
Actually, the only question I have for Kelly is, given that you're only in your second year on the Planning Commission and all the good work that they do and what's in front of them as far as redrafting the town plan, why the move to the select board?
So I've really enjoyed my work on the Planning Commission, and I've worked with the Burlington Planning Commission for decades on policy. So I'm very familiar with that. I think the main decision to move to the select board was because my background in fiscal management and city municipal budget management, as well as my background managing transitions, I think makes me uniquely qualified to help our town through what I think is going to be a pretty difficult period. I think it's important that members of the select board can come at these two questions with both an ability to listen to citizens and with a neutral view on which way they could go. I think we haven't talked about it tonight, but I think the transition of Dean Block is a very, very significant thing. And I've managed those kinds of transitions in coordination with department heads in the city of Burlington. So I made this decision because I saw two really important transition periods before the town that I really loved, and I felt that I had a unique set of skills to help the town solve them.
Thanks, Kelly.
Jonathan, can I just clarify something?
Absolutely.
I realized that I may not have been clear when we were talking about could I find 10% in the Charlotte CBFRS budget. I did state that it would be not including personnel costs. So if you look at our total increase in our budget this year, it's only 8.45%. So are there line items, with the exception of personnel, that there could be 10% reductions in those line items? Yes. Could there be an overall budget decrease of 10%? Not without impacting personnel.
Great. Thanks. So we're going to conclude with giving each of you up to a minute to have a closing statement. And we're going to start with Lindsay.
Thanks for having me on the call tonight, everybody. It's been a pleasure to hear from all of you and to see your little pictures here. I'm looking forward to serving the community and to serving the library. So I look forward to your vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Megan?
I want to thank Patrice and Lewis and Kelly because I've learned so much on this call just from everything that you've talked about, and you have a lot. on your plates, I can tell. So in terms of my candidacy, I just would like to say that if I was going to be a member of the school board, I would advocate for Charlotte Community School to ensure its continued success and work toward our shared goals of a quality education for our children, but also a positive working environment for our educators and our staff members. I personally have had a positive experience as a parent in this school community over the past 5 years. And as a first-time member of the school board, I'd be listening to concerns of families and educators and staff and taxpayers and working toward improvement based on their concerns. So thank you for your consideration. I hope you'll write my name in for the school board.
Thanks, Megan. You might have to just go around and make sure that we know how to spell your name and make it accurate. Louis.
Thanks, John. Thanks everyone for participating. Thanks, Lindsay and Megan, for stepping up and running for these great positions. Megan, if you win, good luck, because you know the taxes, our school taxes are going to start going up in a couple of years, and that's going to be you'll be in the thick of it. And we can turn all our ire towards CVSD. And Lindsay, I got some late books, so if you get elected to this, make sure the Mudge Boys get a little love from the library. I'm not sure if Margaret's on the call right now. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. My cell phone number is on the town website. I love it when people call me or they text me. I know that Front Porch Forum can get kind of nasty. And, you know, catch me in a bad moment. Maybe I'll complain about those posts in a public meeting. But, you know, all of us on the select board, and I'm sure Patrice and Kelly, whoever wins is going to be approachable as well. We really love it when folks just call us, reach out to us, let us know what's on their mind. Public comment in a select board meeting sometimes can be intimidating. So by all means, feel free to reach out. I hope that you vote for me. I hope that you don't write in Mickey Mouse or some other ridiculous thing. Again, I think this was a great session. It was great to listen to ideas from both Patrice and Kelly. I think this is a really hard election on the contested seat in the select board, because I think we have two very, very valuable candidates, and I wish them both luck. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks. I just want to share with, well, I guess it's already been passed along to Megan that Mike suggested for Megan to, for all write-in candidates, to provide little stickers with a name so that you can hand them out at town offices on town meeting day. Okay, Kelly.
I have really enjoyed the last few years taking some of my experience from Burlington, working in municipal government and trying to solve problems there and bringing them to the Planning Commission in Charlotte. I have my extensive background, I think, makes it very evident that I can handle the job as a select board member, especially during this important transition time. I think I am particularly no disparity meant, Louis, but to see so many women here running for office. I also am involved in Burlington with the Emerge program, and it's just great to see women stepping up to take these positions because it's important. And
no
so
offense taken.
I'm grateful to see that. If elected, I'll listen. My cell phone will be available. I'll do my homework. I'll work hard. I will approach problems thinking not that I have all the solutions, but that if I can talk to enough people and debate with folks and do my homework and understand that together we can come up with solutions that work. I think that we are at a point of inflection in the town, not only with the question of town meeting day, but also with this major staff transition happening, the question of the fire and rescue coming forward, the possibility that the town budget could not pass on election day. As Louis said, we have an issue in the state with increasing school costs, which the select board doesn't have direct control over. We have a housing crisis. We have a climate emergency. So there's a lot of different pieces that we as a town need to come together and see how we can do our part to address. And we, our select board members, need to bring their best thinking to try to solve. I am honored to be able to live in Charlotte. I'm so grateful that sort of the happenstance of the co-housing brought me here. I have never left. And I really believe that we have a unique town, and I want to be able to do whatever I can and to use my skills in the best way possible to help Charlotte solve problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Patrice.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you to all the candidates, both those that are running for select board. Megan, I wish you the best of luck on the school board. Having done that job for 10 years, there's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to be done. And listening to your constituents and the school board members from the other communities, I know with your background, you'll represent Charlotte well and do it in the best interest of our students, regardless of which school community they're in. Lindsay, thank you for stepping up to serve on the library trustees board. You know, there's a lot of work that you guys do too that goes sometimes behind the scenes that people don't realize what you're doing. As far as just wrapping things up, I would just ask people to look to my commitment to the community over the past 37 years, my history of teamwork and volunteerism in town. I think that makes me a strong representative for you on the select board. I am fiscally disciplined. I'm a New Englander. I've lived in New England all my life, and my father taught me well what the value of a dollar is. And I do believe in data-driven decision-making. I don't make decisions without doing my research, without hearing from my constituents and weighing all the options. We're never going to make everyone happy because we don't live in utopia. There's always going to be somebody that disagrees with decisions that get made, especially at the governing level. I would be grateful for the opportunity to give back to the community yet again. When I was chatting with Scooter, he asked me why, and I said, well, I look at this as my next chapter. You know, I was 10 years on the school board. I'm finishing and in my 10th year at CVFRS, and I hope if I were to elected that I would serve the community on the select board for maybe 10 years. So I appreciate everyone being here, and I look forward to people voting for me so I can serve you.
Thank you, Patrice. Thank you all for being in the thick of it, for all of the homework that you've done, the passion that you've showed, and your commitment to making Charlotte a better place. It's really quite evident. I feel very lucky to be a member of this community with people like you who choose to serve. So thank you all. And thank you to those who have attended tonight's session. It's a wonderful tribute to your interest in town politics and hearing the positions from the candidates to make an informed choice. So this is the conclusion of our candidates night. I don't know whether anybody from the Grange would like to close up for us, but thank you. It's been an honor to moderate. I've learned a lot as well, and I wish all the candidates good luck.
Jonathan, thank you. On behalf of the Charlotte Grange, thank you so much for moderating so beautifully. And big thank you, as always, to the library and to the Charlotte News and to these candidates. We kept more than 50 people on the screen for an hour and 15 minutes, which is just incredible. So well done, everyone. And thank you for coming and thank you for participating.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Good night.
Good night.